Hi, this is CEO Ask Me Anything at GitLab. It's a public call, and Dylan has the first question. Dylan, you want to verbalize it?
Dylan might be asleep since he's in Australia.
Can you read it for him?
Sure. What do you think is the biggest mistake leadership made in 2019?
Yeah, I think our growth IACV was masking a problem with our new IACV. So after customers opted for GitLab, we see a strong growth of both the number of accounts, mainly that, but also upgrading to higher tiers. While that was going above expectations, we weren't paying attention to new IACV lagging. So we weren't able to land enough in 2019 kind of calendar year. Our fiscal 20, we landed about as many accounts as we did in fiscal 19, which is not good. That should be growing. Even worse, we expected the deals, the lands to be bigger, but they didn't increase in size. So now we have to make sure that we kind of align our sales strategy to that reality. The good news is it's an amazing market we're in. We have an amazing product. And as soon as we get the product in use, it will grow and people will use more of it. But we got to make sure that we plan accordingly. Robert, you want to verbalize your question?
Robert's not on a call. I will verbalize this question. Since there are massive bushfires occurring throughout Australia at the moment, has GitLab considered any charitable donations or work that could assist the local volunteers? And what is GitLab's current policy on charitable causes?
I think one thing we have is we have a no ask vacation policy. So if you want to use that to volunteer, that's totally okay. Something I've been discussing with Robin, which isn't a policy at this point, is maybe we could sponsor financially for any hour worked for a cause. So be like, if you take time out of your life to work for a cause, GitLab will sponsor that financially with like $25 for every hour you worked or something like that. And that's something we've discussed on my suggestion this week. So we'll have a look at that. But just to be clear, that's not a policy. I'm not promising anything. Siri, you have the next question. Who wants to verbalize that fun question?
Suri is asking, would you rather have every song slowly morph into a We Like to Party song by the Venga Boys, or have every bottle soylent taste like burnt pepper noten?
I think I'll go for the paper note. That's very yummy. I do remember vividly we were going to a wedding of our friends, actually my best friend, and we had to make a short trip in a bus. And on the way back, I played the karaoke version of We're Going to Ibiza, also from the Venga Boys. And I held up the iPad so people could see it. And I think we had it linked to the radio of the bus or something. It was a lot of fun. And you might not like the Venga Boys, but they're a Dutch invention by Dutch radio DJ. Tucker, you want to verbalize your question?
Yeah, sorry. A bunch of us went to the wrong meeting link, so I'm gathering myself right now. And sorry about that.
No problem. Let's skip to the Tucker, his 4 questions, and go to Sean just for now, number 8.
Sure, thanks, Sid. Sean Carroll, backend engineer and release management. So my question is, GitLab already has native integration with Jupyter notebooks. different from, for example, the GitHub where it's rendered only. We can actually execute code on these notebooks. And in my experience, you know, what's called machine learning is actually a lot of DevOps and orchestration work. And so I think we have a lot of pieces in place already. And are there plans to basically promote GitLab as a platform to build these type of ML applications on?
Yeah, I think we should. I think it's very, very promising. It's still a space that is in rapid development. I think early winners are things like Kubeflow. I think early winners are things like data versioning. I think the best technology right now is Pachyderm, but it's paid. There's also Delta Islands from the makers of Apache Spark data stacks. So there's a ton of promising technology, and it's migrating into standards. I think the best thing we can do at this point is just tell people examples of how to use ML with GitLab. We shouldn't hold back because we also have Meltano. That's a different product that should stand on its own legs. We should just go and promote how to do it with GitLab. So I'm encouraged someone added a link that we already have about gitlab.com/solutions as data science. Awesome. If you can contribute to that, that'd be great. Or if you can record a video or a blog post, preferably in collaboration with a customer, and add it to this, that'd be awesome. Does that answer your question, Sean?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sid.
Cool. Back to Tucker. Thanks, Tucker, for asking 4 questions. You want to start off?
Yeah, I feel a little bad. I tried to space them out when I came in here earlier.
No, don't feel bad. You add your questions to the list. Everyone gets a cursor, so I think that's totally fine.
So something I noticed, I've seen you in a lot of interviews, and I see your answers there, and they're really cool. And I noticed you're asked to sell the return on investment of all remote, and I couldn't help but wonder, we're well known for our diversity and inclusion. So if asked, how would you sell diversity and inclusion to an interviewer? Yeah,
so when talking to interviewers, or maybe when I read this yesterday, I read investors. So my answer, I'm first going to give the investment answer, and then I'm not sure how it will be different from interviewers. But for investors, I would say having more perspectives in the company leads to better results. Like you're able to look behind more corners if you have a diversity of opinions and people. It leads to more applicants. Like before people apply at a company, they'll take a look at the company, the videos, the materials, team page, and they'll see if they recognize themselves. And if they don't, they will not apply. So if you're a more diverse company to start with, you're able to kind of reach a broader audience. And in the end, like the company is a combination of product, process, and people. But the process generates the product, and the people generate the processes. So in the end, if we get the best people, we're going to have the best company. I think another factor is people stay longer in an inclusive company, not just the diverse people. Everyone will stay longer. If the habits that you have to be welcoming and inclusive to people are just, it should be a pleasant way of operating and the right way of operating. And it should lead to being a company where people don't leave because they feel alienated for any reason. So we have great retention at the company. Maybe that's also because we're successful. Maybe that's also because we're all remote, but I think that diversity and inclusion is certainly a part of that. And I misread your question as explaining it to investors. So I added that, hey, even if there was not a return on investment, I think we would still do it because it's the right thing to do. And I can't think of anything I would say different to an applicant to the company, an interviewer, although I might not focus on the return on investment in that case. Does that answer that part, your question?
Yeah, very, very much so. And you alluded to the underlying point of I think people may assume it's just an ethical, well, it is an ethical decision, but they might actually suspect it's not profitable. But in my observation, I see it as incredibly profitable. So I wanted those angles, and I think you did a great job of answering it. So then, of course, I got the next question, so I'll just hustle on. Sorry, everyone. So a big topic for me right now on the federal team is we're doing some structural overhaul with how we manage our workflows. And I noticed we have some suggested solutions for real-time editing of issue titles and descriptions. And I actually had a mini inspiration just before the meeting of maybe even real-time threads. So if we had even, the static commenting style that we have, but then within there, we could have a real-time thread. Are there any goals to flesh that out any sooner? Because in my opinion, an observation of at least the federal team, that'd be hugely beneficial to replace what we have to depend on Google Docs for. And we end up not leaning on GitLab enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a super worthwhile. If you look at the original issue, you'll see that I opened that 4 years ago. So I greatly care about this. If you look at the current open issue, you'll see that I have the last comment. And the reason I think it's so important is that it just works way better in a Google Doc than something where you have to press a save button. We're all experiencing that every day. And it doesn't make sense to kind of have to leave the GitLab issue description, go to another tool, a Google Doc, and then go back. Because guess what? People forget to cross-link. We had an example 2 days ago where it was about our Jira importer. There was an amazing Google Doc. Guess what? It wasn't linked for any of the issues. Not even linked, but it was also, even if they linked it, they didn't publish it, so it wasn't be accessible, etc. It just greatly distracts from everything. I like the kind of the minimum viable product approach of embedding Google Docs that you suggested. I'm not sure that's possible to embed Google Docs. I'm pretty sure that that's kind of not where we have to go. Although, why not? It's the minimal step. So iteration just requires us to do that first. So if that's possible, let's do it. I would love to see longer term to have it in GitLab. I think people have the expectation that GitLab is the source. Many people are self-hosted. They might not want a SaaS. Even if they want a SaaS, now they have to kind of get an API token from Google and all those things. So I'd love to see it in GitLab. Since the early days of collaborative editing, like Etherpad and things like that, I think Google Doc has emerged as the golden standard, but there's also more and more kind of open source tooling. And the thing I mentioned in my comment a while ago was AutoMerge. It's a CRDT in general that is more complex than operational transformations. So I'm slightly skeptical, but it seems to have some traction with real life applications being built on it. So maybe they simplified it to the point that it's now more doable. This one is closed. There's also XD and Eon. So you just kind of run an experiment, either embedding Google Docs. If that's possible, let's just do that first because that seems super simple. But I'd love to see also play with these technologies. In general, I think the problem is that many of these technologies assume you're running stateful somewhere. So you kind of spin up a container that uses memory to kind of keep the state of the doc to have the quick iterations. That might be super expensive, but we have to start somewhere, and I'd love to see more focus on this. Thanks for bringing it up. You want to ask your next question?
Yes, thank you. That was great answers. So I noticed some tweets about prison policies and protocols. I was wondering if you'd be willing to unpack the personal inspiration behind those posts.
Yeah. So, look, I realize I'm the CEO of GitLab, and therefore, anything I say publicly has to jibe with whatever GitLab thinks. Obviously, GitLab as a company doesn't have an opinion on prison policies or anything like that. So I'll answer your question but I hope people understand the difference between GitLab policy and my ramblings on Twitter. I started thinking about the problem because the incarceration rate in the US is very high, and it's a very, very sad thing. One of the factors in that that people suspect is the use of private prisons. If a prison is private, the prison owners can make more money if more people are incarcerated, and they sometimes donate to political campaigns for tougher enforcement, tougher laws, repeat offender laws, and things like that. So it's kind of the business interest is almost opposed to the interest of the general public, which I think we'll conclude, like, if we can be as safe but with less incarceration, that'd be better. One of the solutions people discuss is making prisons public. I don't have an opinion on that. We have public prisons in the Netherlands, where I'm from. We have a much lower incarceration rate. It's hard to distinguish correlation and causation. It's not what my point is about. My point is, assuming we have private prisons, how can we align incentives better? And the idea is, hey, instead of paying people for every day someone is incarcerated, pay them based on a certain geography. Let's say state, to simplify things. In this state, you have to incarcerate everyone, and we'll pay you kind of a fixed fee per year to incarcerate everyone. In that case, your incentive is to have less people in prison. So it's the opposite, and maybe that would lead to less incarceration. There's also a thread about, hey, maybe we'll allow people to opt out into a public system to make sure that the private prison is a better experience to be in than the public one.
Okay, I remember seeing that mentioned. I didn't know if that was something currently happening or if that was a suggestion, but that was a great answer. I resonate with that topic, so I wanted to know more.
It's more of a thought experiment. I don't have a lot of knowledge here.
And then I just got teased by Chris Maurer that this is the Tucker Sid show, so I'm going to make it the Chris Tucker Sid show by calling him out. But I promised everyone I spread my questions out. I'm sorry they got packed together. This is the last one. I noticed some in 12.8 Gitter received some cool upgrades to have, I guess, synchronicity with group structures in GitLab to group structures in Gitter. Are there any initiatives to make any company shifts over to Gitter since we acquired that chat system?
I think that'd be great. Like, we'd like to dog food. I'm very proud of the people, including Eric, who are still like improving Gitter. We haven't put a giant team on it, so it's amazing to see the progress. And if you want to switch to Gitter for things, I'd certainly encourage people to do so. Sean, you want to ask the next question? Oh, we went over that question because we skipped ahead. Alper.
Yeah, my question is, we have a strong focus on iteration, and sometimes a demotivating critic is like, let's not ship half-baked features. Let's only start when we are fully ready. Let's bring it to the industry standard level or competitor level or high quality. What are some good arguments against to defend iteration is more valuable? Yeah,
so I think the idea is to reduce the scope of a feature. So I think there's two themes here. There's the what does half-baked mean? Does it mean it's kind of janky and it doesn't work? It doesn't do what we're saying in the documents? That's the bad variant of half-baked. Like, no, it should do as what you expect and what we promise people. So it should work reliably. It should have good UX. It should be a good feature. This half-baked mean it's missing a lot of scope. For a canonical example I'll go to is, we shipped our container registry, and you could have one type of container per project. Everybody knew that wasn't enough, but we shipped that. It was clearly documented. It took 1.5 years, but someone from the wider community said, hey, let's change that. That was actually a lot of work. So iteration means reducing scope, and it means shipping less functionality than people might expect, considering what's on the can. Like in a couple of days, we're going to release GitLab 12.8. It's going to have compliance management, and it's just a list of your merge requests. That is underwhelming. I don't think it's half-baked. It's really a list of your merge requests, exactly what we say, and it has good UX, it won't hurt performance, it's secure and everything else. But you'd expect much more out of compliance management. Well, that's true, and that's what we're going to ship in releases after that. So I think it's important to make the distinction between scope and quality. We compromise on scope, not on quality. And with half-baked, people might mean one of the two. So it's helpful to disambiguate. Amanda?
Yeah, thanks, Sid. So I was wondering, as we continue to grow and we add more folks to the business, how do we stay true to our value of being as async as possible and not fall into like traditional traps of synchronous meetings? And how can we get more creative when we're thinking about sharing information?
Yeah, I think thanks for asking, super hard. And one of the most important things is working handbook first. Like I see more and more people using Google Docs, sending links to Google Docs. Like if it's not in the handbook, it doesn't exist. So if you have an initiative in the company, you communicate it via Google Doc. You're preventing us from working efficiently. Another thing is to focus on the single source of truth. In the second link I posted, and I'll share the screen for the YouTube, people watching via YouTube, we want to train people in certain competencies. Right now, guess what? We have 20 different ways of defining our competencies and how we train people. That's not efficient. That's not allowing everyone to contribute. That leads to just a lot of training that's duplicated and out of date. So we'll have to make sure that we move to kind of a single source of truth that everyone can update, and that becomes really, really good over time. So that's the handbook first is the first one, single source of truth, the second one. And then the third one is DRI, directly responsible individual. At GitLab, you shouldn't need a meeting to build consensus. Ask people for their input. And if you do the work, you make the decision. So I think in a lot of companies, meetings are built to convince other people. At GitLab, it's very painful, but we have to make sure we're okay with you give your input and someone decides otherwise. That's what allows us to work efficiently. That's what allows rapid progress and not being stuck in meetings the whole day. So I think that's really important to reiterate.
Great reminder, thank you.
Thanks for asking. Super important question. Next question, Shenye.
Yeah, Sid, I wanted to ask what's the best thing that has happened to you since the last release of GitLab in January? Yeah,
since we have 2 minutes left and we're maybe putting out of time in number 14, but I'm going to keep it short. I saw the kickoff for 12.9 and I was very impressed with the ambition. Like if you look what we have scheduled for that release, it is insane. I've never seen a software company make so rapid progress. I think we're the most ambitious and effective software producing organization of our size in the world. And I'm very glad to see we're not reducing our ambition. Cassio?
So I'm kind of new and I still learning about our values and all that. Our values hierarchy states that we trust iteration and transparency values will lead us to result. From my perspective and experience, transparency seems to distinguish us from other companies more than lead us to result. Wouldn't collaboration with iteration drive more results than transparency?
Well, thanks for the question. I think transparency does lead to result. It leads to a lot of trust from our customers. It leads to people knowing about us and 10,000 people every month applying at the company. So I think it leads to awesome results. Doesn't mean we shouldn't also do collaboration. But I do think it's very, very helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe to elaborate while we're at time, but I'm going to elaborate for a second. For example, like having open issue trackers and a maturity page for the product really, really helps. Our customers trust that they know the state of the product and how we're making progress. Morgan, last question.
Yeah, so I was just adding to Tucker's conversation earlier about the prison industrial complex here in the US, and being a former educator in the elementary schools, there's a big kind of like, I guess, governmental thing to have a school to prison pipeline where there are children that are being charged more in the middle school arena with certain like crimes, and it continues to keep them in the juvenile system. Then they go from juvenile to, you know, county jail and then prison from there. Are there any kind of programs and initiatives that GitLab can work on to maybe step into the schools, teach these kids how to code, give them some kind of outlet so that they're not continuously caught up in the systemic things that are happening here on the US side?
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. I think teaching people how to code is a big lever. My wife started Real Skills in the Netherlands. We spent many Sundays together helping people get on that track. So I have a passion for it. I'm sure some other people have a passion for it. And we both agree that the incarceration rate in the US is a big problem. So I'd love to discuss that further with you. Can you chat? Can you schedule a coffee chat for us to talk about it and maybe announce it for any other people to join?
Sure.
I'd be very interested as well.
Cool.
Okay, thanks, Tucker.
The time will be announced in the CEO channel. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sid.